newly released video of a New York official shooting a DoorDasher. Here's the update. That video just released finally.
Go! Go!
Absolutely horrifying, that is. According to Atlanta Black Star, the leaked Ring doorbell video, first obtained by News 12 Westchester, shows Town of Chester Highway Superintendent John Reilly exiting his home, firing a warning shot, then aiming his weapon and firing 2 more shots at the DoorDash driver's car, yelling at him to, quote, go. New York State Police say the DoorDash driver simply got lost trying to locate a home in Reilly's neighborhood where he was supposed to make a delivery. After encountering technical issues with the app's GPS navigation, he stopped at several residents' homes asking for directions. Somehow this is something that we've seen play out before. Simple mistake and shots fired. When he got to Reilly's home, Reilly ordered him to get off his property before firing multiple shots at the victim as he attempted to leave in his vehicle, striking the victim once in the back, causing serious physical injuries, state police wrote in a release. The family told local news outlets that the 24-year-old victim's phone lost power, so he drove himself to a gas station to charge the device to 1% and call police. Store clerk had called authorities, but the victim drove himself home, where first responders met him to rush him to a local hospital, grabbing his firearm, and he just started shooting at him, and he thought his life was over. Relative of the victim telling WABC the family said that the victim is still hospitalized and has to undergo a second surgery. Let's get back to Mr. Reilly. He's 48, charged with a number of felonies for the May 2nd shooting, including first-degree assault, criminal possession of a firearm, second-degree criminal possession of a weapon. Reilly was jailed on a $250,000 cash bail, $500,000 bond, $750,000 partially secured bond. Local news outlets say he's bonded out of jail. Orange County District Attorney telling News 12 that his next court appearance was canceled after 2 town judges recused themselves from this case. Now that's going to tell us something there. Everybody knows everybody. It's that kind of place, perhaps. Chester Town Supervisor Brandon Holdridge told WABC, the video is definitely disturbing to watch. Can't imagine what was going through minds in that scenario. It's really just shock and disbelief, Holdridge said. His office has faced a barrage of phone calls since the shooting from community members calling for Reilly's removal from his position. The victim's family is also calling for Reilly to be fired. Holdridge released an official statement shortly after the shooting saying that the town board has no control over Reilly's position as highway superintendent since he was elected to the role. He's an elected official, so that means we have no power over him to resign, Holdridge told News 12 Westchester. Orange County grand jury has not yet officially indicted him in his case either. No new court date has been set for Reilly. State police are still investigating the shooting because Reilly is a federally licensed arms dealer. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms is also looking into the case. The Orange County District Attorney's Office said his firearms have been seized under an extreme risk protection order. Well, from that footage, that very disturbing footage, finally released, again, that's telling. I don't know why he'd be released on any bond while this is sorted out. And I don't know why, as the system that has no power over him. Did they ask for his resignation? That's what I would be curious. Okay, you have no power, but did you ask? Did you pressure him? And then there are the courts and those judges who recuse themselves. Seems to me that there is a mechanism within the law that an outside prosecutor needs to be brought in. But sometimes people who all know each other in a small community, people in power, that is, don't necessarily want to pull the trigger on that. Your thoughts on what we've seen now?
Pull the trigger. Interesting choice of words there, Sharon. It is sad because there is so much. I don't want to say it's corruption, but there's definitely something that's entrenched within these smaller communities or within these districts, just very small, intimate communities. And nobody wants to be the one to shake things up or to go against somebody. And at the end of the day, it's actually harming our communities. It's harming the people who live in these communities, the same people that people like the shooter are in charge of, right? He was elected to represent certain people. And, incidents like this one, look, first of all, speaking on a societal level, right? We can't have it both ways. We can't, as a society, insist on never leaving our homes, on never having to interact with people, on having everything delivered straight to our front doors because we can't handle any kind of inconvenience in our lives anymore, while getting mad about delivery drivers just driving around neighborhoods and even, approaching our front doors. But when I first read this story, I was first inclined to think that people are just like going crazy and we're all unhinged or whatever. But we've covered enough stories like this one that I'm not sure that we can treat them as isolated incidents anymore. And look, like, I live in Texas. I'm not here to say that we need to get rid of guns. I don't think that that's feasible, but guns seem to be just a part of this problem. We've created a perfect storm where everyone is armed, everyone is isolated from their neighbors and communities, and everyone is paranoid that someone ringing their doorbell is, like, at best trying to talk to them about Jesus, or at worst trying to scam or hurt them and their families. And I don't know how to fix this, right? This is a deep societal issue that won't go away overnight. And just one aspect of that is what you were saying, that nobody at the top, nobody who's in charge, nobody who has the power and authority to actually do something is willing to do something for whatever reason. And this stuff isn't going to go away with like a piece of legislation or anything like that. And while I like to see when people get punished in cases like this, the victim is always lucky if they get away with their life whenever there are guns involved, right? If this victim had not gotten away with his life, it would have been a much, much sadder story that we're covering today. But either way, punishing a crime means that a crime has already happened. It's still reactionary, right? We're still just reacting to something that has already happened. And whenever guns are involved in the crime, it oftentimes can mean that someone has already died. And that's frankly, it's unacceptable, right? For that person's family, for that person, right? So whatever is happening with society, it's not going to be an easy thing to undo or to fix, but we need to get away from wherever we have gotten in this world. And it's going to be an adjustment. We've isolated ourselves so much that we need to somehow figure out a way to undo that isolation.
Yeah, I think you raise several interesting points, and I'll start with the last one, isolation. Because there is this thing where it's my world and I'm gonna police everyone in it, right? I don't believe for a second that Mr. Reilly was afraid, can't be in his mind, but it's just my belief. And I don't believe for a second that anybody who knows this man, who acted in such an unreasonable way, would tell you that this is strange behavior to them. I think this is kind of who he is. And I think the word reasonable is key, because we're living in a society where you can make a foolish argument to justify just about anything, and other reasonable people will go along with it. What could possibly be? Mr. Reilly went outside chasing someone. I didn't see anywhere in the state police report where this DoorDash guy came and tried to access a window or, kick the door down. I didn't see any of that. He got lost. And while Mr. Reilly perhaps likely didn't know that, what is reasonable is no longer the standard here in our society. And it's scary. And it seems that there are a particular percentage, a large percentage of this group that carries out this kind of thing. They don't look like me. They don't look like you. I'm not interjecting race. I'm just saying it's this privileged power need to stand your ground. And I understand there's laws like that, yes, across the country, but I mean literally. Why do you feel so threatened that the first thing you do is grab a loaded one? You told the guy to go, he's running away. That's what if we're to believe the report. And yet, did you bother to allow him to sprint on out of there? No, not until you hit him.
Yeah. And you talk about privilege. Again, not to inject race into it, but like you or I would not even think to like go grab a gun and just start shooting at door dashers, right? Because like, why would that be a thing that we would expect to get away with, right?
Yeah.
And
even if we were into that, which we're not, we would know. Oh,
right.
whoa.
Yeah. And it's like what you said before, right? This guy, he must have had something in his history or in his psyche, and like the people who knew him, there's no way that they would have been like surprised by something like this. I don't know, because I don't know him, but it's very hard for me to believe that he wouldn't have like displayed some kind of signs that like, if somebody comes up to my door who is lost, maybe I'll go grab my gun and shoot that person, because that's not a normal thought process that most people would have. But you're absolutely right. What is reasonable, right? Sure, like it is reasonable for someone to want to protect their property or their families or themselves, right? But it's all relative. And we've certainly swung more in one way than in the other. And we're swinging more towards paranoia. We're swinging more towards everyone is out there. Everyone is trying to get me. Everyone's trying to take what I have. And I need to protect all my stuff, all my people, my castle, right? We have castle doctrine here in Texas. I don't know if that's everywhere else. But yeah, if anybody's on your property, you have the right to take action against that person, which, again, it is a reasonable thing to want to do. But we're so inundated, like, especially people who watch Fox News all the time, all they're hearing about is that there are gang members and terrorists everywhere, right?
We're being invaded.
We're being literally invaded by gang members and terrorists. And that's what they're seeing on the news. They're not really seeing it a whole lot in their everyday neighborhoods. I'm gonna bet, because I don't see any of them here around where I am. But it's also, if it's out there, then it could find you, it could come to you. And we live in this constant state of like what could happen or what might happen. And we're reactive towards those things to the point that we, even in our actual lives, like off the internet, our real lives are still so disconnected from reality that we can't even see what's around us.
Yes. This is why I love you, because we're going to stick with this reality thing here.
Yeah.
If he really felt threatened, and I understand castle doctrine, stand your ground, all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
How he was putting his own life in jeopardy. He doesn't know who this perhaps perp is running from the property. It doesn't make any sense. Any way you slice it, it's not making any sense, Mr. Reilly. And I just think you can't divorce him from his privilege, nor his position in this town. He's in a position of power. Mm-hmm. It's something we'll continue to follow. But again, the video finally released. And what you said too about the victim, money, perhaps a lawsuit, taxpayers will pay, whatever happens here, right? At the end of the day, a simple act of trying to make ends meet, right? Isn't that why you do DoorDash? You want to make ends meet, right? Supplement, or maybe that's your whole gig. You don't do it to get shot in the back and have to go through several surgeries. It's just stunning. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, when are you defending yourself and your property and your family? And when are you just like on the offense, right? What's the difference there, right? If somebody is driving past your home and you go outside to see who's there and then you start shooting at them, are you the defendant or are you the one who needs to be defended against, right?
Yeah.
And in this case, I think it's very hard for this person to argue that they were concerned for their lives, because again, if you actually were, like, most people would not just like go outside unnecessarily and see who's out there with a gun and then start shooting, especially when they can see that it's just somebody who's like, there's nothing that's happening there that is worth you shooting at somebody. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We, as you said, have covered a number of these kinds of cases. Thinking of one that is a landmark case where a young man was talking to his girlfriend and just had some Skittles and Snapple, I believe. And someone was in pursuit, stalking, following, claiming that this young man was a danger, killed him and got away with it. And somebody else almost got away with it. In fact, a father and son in parts of rural Georgia and a neighbor with a bowl cut because someone was jogging in their neighborhood. Almost got away with it. Okay, till the footage became visible for the world to see, and a district attorney who has recently got off, who tried to say, nah, nothing to see here. They didn't do anything wrong. Thought it was a burglar. He's a bad guy.
Sharon, I know we have to go on to the next story, but if somebody is getting the police called on them for running outside or for walking on a sidewalk, this is adding to my case that we need bike lanes, we need walking lanes, we need people to get outside, and we need better infrastructure out there, because that should not be an unusual thing that is worthy of somebody getting the cops called on them for. So that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I want bike lanes, I want jog lanes, I want all this stuff. I just know that in parts of Georgia and probably Texas too, that somehow someone will criminalize riding your bike in the bike lane if you happen to be of a certain hue, okay?